They called it the most loathsome cast ever put on paper, and they were right. Behind the scenes, St. Elmo's fire was a mess. Fights on set, studio meltdowns, actors walking out. And the theme song wasn't even about the movie. These are 20 of the weirdest, wildest facts you never knew about St. Elmo's fire. Behind the scenes, the crew had their own nickname for the movie, St. Elmo's Tire Fire. It came from how chaotic the shoot was. Scenes had to be reshot over and over because of hangovers, ego clashes, and actors changing lines without approval. Even Joel Schumacher got worn out by it. This ended up being the last film he wrote until Flawless in 1999, 14 years later, because the process was so exhausting. The marketing sold the Brat Pack as this tight group of real-life friends. The reality was different. Judd Nelson and Emilio Estevez privately referred to some of their co-stars as dead weight. The cast only appeared together at mandatory promotional events. Ali Sheedy later admitted in a radio interview that they never felt like a real group of friends and that the Brat Pack label was more of a prison than a badge. She also hinted that certain cast members acted like divas and treated the crew poorly. The film made $37.8 million on a $10 million budget, which in 1985 made it a solid hit. Columbia Pictures quickly floated the idea of a reunion sequel, but the cast hated the experience so much it was never going to happen. At least 3 cast members shut it down on the spot, telling their agents they'd rather retire than deal with the same on-set headaches again. So the whole idea was dead within weeks. During filming in Washington, D.C., Andrew McCarthy gave an interview to the Washington Post where he openly trashed the script. Schumacher was understandably pissed and wanted him gone, but the studio refused to recast that late in the schedule. From that point on, Schumacher limited his takes, pushing to get McCarthy's scenes done as quickly as possible just to keep friction down. McCarthy later said on a podcast with Marc Maron that Schumacher thrived on beautiful chaos and sometimes stirred up tension between actors to make their performances sharper. McCarthy recalled Schumacher telling him outright, "I need you to piss her off before we roll." No wonder McCarthy couldn't handle the set all that much. He even skipped the wrap party completely, saying he had no interest in celebrating that circus. Demi Moore was deep into cocaine addiction when she was cast. Schumacher made her sign a contract requiring her to complete rehab before filming or be fired. She went through 15 days of treatment and was assigned a sober coach who shadowed her on set. Moore later told Vanity Fair that she felt kept on a leash, having to check in with her companion while other actors were doing lines in their trailers. Her rehab clause almost blew up production halfway through. One night, her sober companion caught her breaking curfew and threatened to have her removed from the movie. Schumacher personally drove to her apartment at 3 a.m. to smooth things over before Columbia found out. Crew members also recall one day when she showed up obviously high. Schumacher sent her home until she could pull herself together. Rob Lowe had a habit of arriving late, sometimes straight from a night of clubbing. Schumacher admitted that some of his bleary-eyed close-ups weren't acting. They were just filmed the morning after. Judd Nelson told Rolling Stone in 1986 that some of the Brat Pack were more concerned with being photographed at the right clubs than showing up prepared, which insiders took as a not-so-subtle jab at Lowe. Joel Schumacher didn't think Rob Lowe was right for Billy Hicks. The role almost went elsewhere. Lowe's agent kept calling until Schumacher agreed to meet with him. Lowe made his pitch directly, explaining why he wanted the part so badly. That persistence worked. Robert Downey Jr. was also in the running, but the final choice was Lowe, and it became one of his signature 80s roles. Some of the cast spoke to Premiere magazine, off the record, about Schumacher's treatment of Lowe. They said the shooting schedule was shifted to work around him if he was late. That didn't sit well with everyone, and it added to the tension already brewing between cast members. Even the saxophone solo was fake. The instrument wasn't connected to anything. Lowe just acted it out while the crew tried not to laugh. It became a running joke on set, but Judd Nelson pushed it further and it ended up in an actual feud. He started doing exaggerated imitations between takes. Lowe wasn't amused. It got tense enough that he refused to share a trailer hallway with Nelson for the rest of filming. During production, Mayor Winningham called the script soap opera nonsense in an interview. Schumacher heard about it and stopped speaking to her for the rest of the shoot. Off camera, she kept her distance from the rest of the cast, later telling the Washington Post she found the Brat Pack toxic and avoided them completely. The Georgetown bar St. Elmo's was a set, built inside an abandoned restaurant. Shooting caused headaches for locals when streets were closed for weeks just to get exterior shots. And in some scenes, the street outside isn't Georgetown at all. It's the Universal backlot, just a couple of buildings down from the Back to the Future clock tower. McCarthy disliked his character enough that he started rewriting dialogue without telling Schumacher. In some scenes, he's saying lines that weren't in the script at all, which forced the editors to work around continuity problems in post-production. Andrew McCarthy's love scene with Ali Sheedy was reshot multiple times for the TV version, which required less contact and less skin. For theaters, Schumacher kept one of the racier takes in as a way of keeping the scene closer to his original cut. Early in filming, Columbia Pictures started panicking. When the first dailies came in, the tone was all over the place. Some scenes played like an emotional melodrama, others felt like a goofy sitcom. The studio worried the movie had no consistent identity. Joel Schumacher promised he could fix it in the edit and begged them to keep going. On top of that, Columbia hated the title. They sent Schumacher a 35-page memo laying out every problem they had with St. Elmo's Fire and even suggested new names, things like The Real World and Sparks. Thankfully, none of those stuck. That famous title track, St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion by John Parr, has almost nothing to do with the plot. It started as a song about Canadian wheelchair athlete Rick Hansen, who was traveling the world to raise awareness for spinal cord injuries. His journey was called the Man in Motion Tour. Composer David Foster and John Parr were hired to make a song for the film, but Parr couldn't connect with the story. Foster showed him a news clip about Hansen, and Parr decided to write lyrics in his honor. The wheels in the song aren't about Demi Moore's Jeep, they're about the wheels of Hansen's wheelchair. Parr later admitted he wasn't excited to be working on the movie at all, but used the gig to give Hansen's cause more attention. Rob Lowe got nominated for a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Supporting Actor. Normally, that's bad news for a film, but in this case, the nomination actually drove ticket sales. People went out to see for themselves if Lowe was really that bad. The curiosity factor helped push the movie into profit, which is about the most backhanded marketing boost a film can get. Years later, Schumacher admitted he cast the film largely based on who looked good together on a poster, not who could deliver the best performances. The marketing campaign was locked in before the movie was even edited, and Columbia had already printed promotional stills from scenes that didn't make the final cut. Plenty of actors turned down the script, and one studio head even called the 7 leads the most loathsome humans he had ever read on the page. Midway through filming, Ali Sheedy found out the studio was planning to market Demi Moore as the breakout star. She saw it as a PR stunt and told her agent she felt the whole production was being used to push Demi. Sheedy walked off set for half a day, refusing to shoot until Schumacher promised her the poster billing would be equal. She eventually came back, but the tension lingered. The movie's location shoot in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. was not popular with the locals. Businesses complained the crew took over sidewalks and parking without warning. One cafe even put up a handwritten sign telling customers to ignore the Hollywood circus outside after filming blocked their entrance for 2 straight days. During night shoots, residents heckled the cast with bullhorns from apartment balconies. In one scene, someone yelled, "Sell out," during Rob Lowe's dialogue, forcing the crew to reshoot the entire take.